What's goody, people? What's goody? I must say, I'm happy to have you back, and as well as I'm happy to start getting into the connections of things, the meat and potatoes. Because in this, I will also be pinning in, other videos that I've made to make the connection, right? So in this, we'll be dealing with the master's carpet, but we'll be dealing with Tammuz, right? And how, Julius Caesar was turned into Jesus Christ, what I did a video on already, and how George Washington is, the York Rite, while King James is the Scottish Rite of making either one of those God, right? So the fight is over them. We're just the tools, used in this situation, right? So like you see right here at the bottom, it's the Druze, right? And you know that system. When all of this is read, it will make sense to you. So let me bring in my desktop here. Let me turn this mic down a bit. All right. All right, all right. So, as you can see on top, the Master's Carpet, Tammuz. Julius Caesar and George Washington turned into God, and King James into Satan, right? So, the preface, right? As you know, I read this before, but this is where, I told you we'll be getting into. So, it says, in all the most popular manuals of Freemasonry and its standard works of the highest authority in merit, there are four well authenticated claims set up on behalf of that institution as follows. One, that it is a religious philosophy or a system of religious science. As you know, I already did a video on that. Then it says it was revived in its present outward form in 1717. Now, I also did a video, on hypnotism and mesmerism. So that's where, the reviving comes from, right? Then it says that all its ceremonies, symbols, and celebrated legends of Hiram and its Master Mason degree were directly borrowed from the ancient mysteries or the secret worship of Baal, Osiris, and Tammuz. When I'm pointing up here, it's just for me to know, to bring in, that video of this part. So, we're gonna get into this right here, right? Tammuz, the Babylonian calendar. Tammuz was a month in the Babylonian calendar named for the main Babylonian gods. Tammuz, Sumerian, Damuzid, son of life. Many different calendar systems have since adapted Tammuz to refer to the month in the summer season, right? So, in this you see, the Druze up in there, right? So you understand that I already explained their system, right? And so as we get into this, it'll make a lot more sense, right? In the Hebrew calendar, Tammuz is the 10th month of the civil year, and the fourth month of the elastical year on the Hebrew calendar. It is a summer month of 29 days. Tammuz is also the name of the month of July, in the Georgian calendar, in Arabic and Syriac, in Turkish, Tammuz. All right, so then we down to history. Right? The festival of the deity Tammuz was held throughout the month of Tammuz in midsummer the and celebrated his death and resurrection. The first day of the month of Tammuz was the day of the new moon. In the summer solstice, on the second day of the month, there was lamentations over the death of Tammuz. On the 9th, 16th, and 17th day, Turkalit processions. In the last 3 days, an image of Tammuz was buried. All right. So if you can see anything, this is where Jesus Christ came from, right? In the show this it goes, why is Easter on different days? Why? Because depends on the moon. Why does Easter fall on different dates each year? Easter exact date varies so much because it actually depends on the moon, as we just read right here, right? So you see right there, right? The moon. Okay. So so we understand that that's one part, right? The holiday is set to include the first Sunday after the Pischal full moon, the first full moon after the vernal equinox, right? Just so you can see that, let me take myself away here real quick. So as you can see right up there, right? You can go look that up yourself, right? In Arabic sources, Tammuz is the month of July. In month of July, Tammuz, its histories and celebratory rites with which it is associated or discussed in Arabic literature from the 9th to the 11th century AD. In its translation of the early works, Ibn Wasuyi, I'm sorry if I don't get I'm bad with names, right? 19th, 9th and 10th century AD. Emirates the month of the Babylonian year, adding a remark that Tammuz lived in Babylon before the coming of the Chaldeans. I'm going to just say the charlatans. And belonged to the ancient Mesopotamian tribe called Gan and further adds that the Sabians, I'm sure I want to keep this up here so y'all can see where I'm at, right? See that? Sabian and Haran and Babylonian still laminated the loss of Tammuz every July, but that the origin of the worship had been lost. As you know, in Freemasonry, they'll tell you, the word was lost, right? Al Nadim in the 10th century work Katib al Farest, drawings from the work on Syriac calendars feast days, describe a Tammuz festival that took place in the middle of the month of Tammuz. Women bellowed the death of Tammuz at the hands of his master, who was said to have grounded his bones in a mill and scattered them to the wind. Consequently, women would forego the eating of ground foods during the festival time. Some festivals is mentioned in the 11th century by Albin Altair as still taking place in the month of Tammuz on the banks of the Tigris River. Now, if you read the Bible and stuff like that, you would know the Tigris River, right? So, which then this is how I'm again show you the connection of Jesus, right, for now, and Tammuz, spring. Theologians have also suggested that Jesus was born in because it says what season was Jesus born in? That's the question, right? And the answer is spring, right? Theologians have also suggested that Jesus was born in the spring, based on the biblical narrative that shepherds were watching over their flock in the fields of the night. Jesus' birth, something that they would have done in the spring, not winter. The Bible nowhere points to Jesus being born in mid-winter. So you can again look this up yourself right here. Just look this up, right? Right? Pardon me. Let me grab some water. This is gonna be a good trip. You should get a lot from this, right? My roof Al Roof Safar, I do a name, Sufi, right? 1875 through 1995, a leading Iraqi poet wrote a poem entitled Tammuz al Hariya, July, the month of freedom. And keep in mind the 4th of July, and we have George Washington as well, right? The founding father, the first president of the nation, July 4th, right? To celebrate the Young Turks Revolution of 1908 and the disposition of Abin al Hamid, the last Ottoman Sultan, and the 1958 revolution in Iraq took place on the 14th of July. The 1968 Ba'ath Revolution in Iraq took place in the month of Tammuz, and the Ozoric nuclear reactor built by Saddam Hussein in 1977 and destroyed by Israel in 1981, right? Was known domestically as Tammuz, a reference to the month of July when temperatures in Iraq reached their highest levels and it was unbearably hot, right? The 2006 Lebanon War is known in Lebanon and much of the Arab world as Harb Tammuz, the July War, following the Arab custom of naming the Arab-Israeli wars by months or years, right? Now then we have Damuzid. So this is a cult, right? Not to confuse with the Damuzid, the fisherman. Although it's a connected story, this is why I also pointed out Jesus, right? You can see him right here, the fisherman. Right, so we understand that this story is really coming from, right? Tammuz, redirect here, so we know that this story is also connected to that story. This is all connected. Damuzid, right? God of the shepherds in fertility, right? The shepherd, right? Ancient Sumerian depiction of the marriage of Enan and Tammuz, right? Once again, I'll let you see this, right? Okay. Right now, although heaven for half the year, Ker, hell for the other half, or just dead, right? The parents, Inky and Duchir. Now, if you followed, I put in a video of, wait, I go over here. I put in a video of Job, right? When, and how it gets into the Babylonian calendar. So if you want more in depth on the Babylonian calendar, just hit the link up there and you should be able to get it. Right, siblings, Gashina, Nina. I'm not going to be able to get that name, so what I did is put it in green. So every time you see it, I would just be saying sister, and these two right here will be in reference. I'll make the first attempt so you'll know which one I'm talking about. But then after that, I'll just be saying sister. Not usually, but some texts said it to be his sister, right? Consort Enan, later known as Ishtar, right? Greek, right? Adonis, right? Eastern Semitic Tammuz, right? Tammuz and Adonis and the Leviathan, right? Remember, I told you about the Druze. So, again, just in case I put it now, we're gonna say, the Druze, right? So right here, so you can see that video, right? This is why I actually did those videos first. So as I say things now, we will start making things connect and you'll be able to see the correlation better. That's why I chose to do things in pieces and then start bringing in things to make them connect for you more simpler, right? Dumuzid, Sumerian, right? Romanized Dumuzid Sepad or Damuzi, later known by the alternative form Tammuz, right, is an ancient Mesopotamian god associated with shepherds, who was also the primary consort of the goddess Enan, later known as Ishtar. The Sumerian mythology, Damuzid's sister was Gashina, right? Gash. You see it right there, right? You see it right there, okay? Right. The guy. I think it should I make this bigger for y'all. The goddess of agriculture, fertility, and dream interpretation. In the Sumerian kings list, Dumuzid is listed as an antediluvian king in the city of Tiberia, and also an early king in the city of Uruk. So we understand that it's in Babylonia as well, right? In Enan's descent into the underworld, this is, another writing. Tammuz fails to mourn Enan's death, and then she returns to in when she returns from the underworld, she allows the Gala demons to drag him down to the underworld as her replacement. Enan later regrets her decision and decrees that Dumuzid will spend half the year in the underworld, but the other half of the year with her, while his sister, right? See it right there. Stays in the underworld in his place, thus resulting in the cycle of the seasons, right? In the Sumerian poem, Enan prefers the farmer Dumuzid, right, competes against the farmer Enkidu for Enan's hand in marriage, right? Will be, well, right here it says Gilgamesh references Tammuz in the tablet 6 of the Epic of Gilgamesh as the love of Ishtar's youth, who was turned into an Alalu bird with a broken wing. Damuzid was associated with fertility and vegetation in the hot, dry summers of Mesopotamia, where of Mesopotamia, were believed to be the cause of Damuzid's yearly death. Doing During the month in midsummer bearing his name, people all across Mesopotamia would engage in public rituals for him. The cult of Damuzid was later spread to the Levant and Greece. The reason why I'm saying that is because the Druze, right? When we mention the Levant, we talk of the Druze. And when we do the DNA of the Druze, it tells you that, they basically was Greek. I did that whole, series. You should see it up here, right? Where it become under the West Semitic name Adonis, right? The cult of Ishtar and Tammuz continued to thrive until the 11th century AD and survived in part of Mesopotamia in the as late as the 18th century. Tammuz is mentioned by name in the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel 8:14 through 15, and possibly alluded in the other passages from the Hebrew Bible. In the late 19th century and early 20th, I'm trying to get this for you. 20th century scholarship of religion, Tammuz was widely seen as prime example of the archetypical dying and rising god, right? So let's go back here, right? Now this is how I'm gonna show you again Julius Caesar, right? But you can check the video out where, Julius Caesar and the Vatican's dirty little secret, right? July, let me take me away. July is named after Julius Caesar, right? Quintilius, right? July was named in honor of Julius Caesar. Quintilius, which was his birth month, was renamed July when he died. Quintilius means fifth month in Latin, which represents where this month originally fell in the Roman calendar. Okay? Right. The cult of Ishtar and Tammuz continued to thrive until the 8th century AD and survived in parts of Mesopotamia as late as the 18th century. Tammuz is mentioned by name in the book of Ezekiel, right? Scholars, Tammuz was widely seen as a prime example of the archetypical dying and rising god, but the discovery of the full Sumerian text of Enan's descent in the middle 20th century appears to disprove the previous scholarly assumption that the narrative ended with Damu's resurrection and instead revealed it ended with Damu's death. However, the re the rescue of Tammuz from the underworld was later found in texts returned of Tammuz, translated in 1963. Hold on a minute. I wasn't even up there. Okay, so I just wanted to move my screen back. Worship, right? The bull man fighting for four quadrupeds, right? Inscription, this is what it says, right? Namesake of the mystical king or shepherd Damuzi, early dynastic 2, right? This is 26,000 BC, 2600 BC, Royal Museum of Art and Histories. This is in Brussels, right? Okay. So this is another tablet right here, the ancient Mesopotamian clay tablets dating to the Rite period 2000 to 1600 BC, containing the laminations over the death of Dammuzid, currently held in Louvre's museum in Paris, right? God of milk and shepherds. The Assyriologist German Black and Anthony Green describe the early history of Dammuz's cult, right, as a complex and bewildering, according to the Sumerian kings list, right? And if you go look this up and you hit this right here, you will actually bring up the Sumerian kings list, okay? Dumuzi was the fifth antediluvian king of the city of Bad Cherira. If I don't get these names right, that's why I have it there for you to see it. Dumuzi was also listed in the early kings as an early king of Uruk, where he was said to have come from a nearby village of Karura, and to have been consorts of the goddess Enan, as Damuzid Sapad, Damuzid the shepherd, right? Damuzid was believed to be provider of milk, which was rare seasonally commodity in ancient Sumer due to the fact that it could not easily be stored without spoiling. Plant growing deity. In addition to being a good shepherd, Damuzid was also an agricultural deity associated with the growth of plants. Ancient Near Eastern people associated Damuzid with the springtime, when the land was fertile and abundant. But during the summer months, when the land was dry and barren, it was thought that Damuzid had died during the month of Damuzid, which fell in the middle of the summer. People also all across Sumer would mourn his death. This seemed to have been the primary aspect of his cult. In Lagish, the month of Damuzid was the sixth month of the year. This month and the holiday associated with it was later transmitted from the Sumerians to Babylonians and other East Semitic people. Pardon me. It was later Babylonian East Semitic people with its name transcribed into these languages as Tammuz, a ritual associated with the Uric temple in Nippur equates Tammuz with the snake god Ishtaran, who in that ritual is described as having died. Right? So, once again, we see this connection with Jesus being Tammuz. Now, the thing is, when you have these connections, the people know the stories. So even when the stories, the names and all of that get lost, these systems that's set up still follow that routine due to the fact that the people know the story. So, through time, say the Bible or whatever, the translations of these things can, the names could be lost because you speak in a new language or whatever, but the stories stay with the people. And this is how they move the people along. Association with date plants, right? With date palms, we know Palm Sunday, right? Tammuz was also identified with the god, right? We're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do this, right? Ama Uskangal Ana, right? Ama Unsugal Ana, right? We're not gonna do this again, so I'm gonna just highlight you here in green so you would know. I'm gonna just say Amma and we would know. Who was originally the local god worshipped in the city of Lagash. In some texts, Amma is described as a heroic warrior, as Amma Dumez is Dumezid, right, is associated with the date palm and its fruits. This aspect of Damuz's cult was always joyful in character and had no association with the dark stories involving his death. To ancient Mesopotamian people, the date palm represented stability because it was one of the few crops that could be harvested all year, even during the dry season. In some Sumerian poems, Damuzid is referred to as my Damu, which means my son, right? Okay. And this is usually applied to him in his role as the personification of the power that causes the sap to rise in trees and plants. Damu is the name most closely associated with Damuzid return in autumn after the dry season has ended. The disrespect of this code emphasizes the fear and exhaustion of the community after surviving the devastating summer. Right, so we know, over here we might worry about winter and stuff like that, but them dry seasons over there is killer. You gotta remember, this like deserts, or how they became deserts, should I say? Exchange with other Near East religions. Dammuzid had virtually no power outside of his distinct realm of responsibilities. Very few prayers addressed to him are extant, and of those that are, almost all of them are simply requests for him to provide more milk, more grain, more cattle, etc. The sole exception of this rule is a single Assyrian inscription in which a man requests Tammuz that when he descends to the underworld, he should take with him a troublesome ghost who has been haunting him. The cult of Tammuz was particularly associated with women who were the ones responsible for mourning his death. Right? The custom of planting miniature gardens with fast growing plants such as lettuce and fennel, which would then later be placed out in the hot sun to sprout before withering in the heat, was the was a well attested custom in ancient Greece, associated with the festival of Adona in honor of Adonis. The Greek variation of Tammuz had some scholars have agreed, based on reference in the Hebrew Bible, that this custom may have been a continuation of an earlier Oriental practice. The same woman who mourned the death of Tammuz also prepared cakes for his consort Ishtar, the queen of heaven. These cakes would be baked in ashes, and several clay cakes molds discovered in Mari, Syria, reveals that they were also at least sometimes shaped like naked women. Right? So you see that right there. Now we're getting into role of marriage, right? So I asked the question, who most popular month to get married? June traditionally is the most popular month to get married, simply because of the mild weather, which being said, there's no wrong time to get married to the love of your life, though it does help to have good weather, right? Let me take me away, just so y'all can see that again, right? So there's anything that I put there, you can actually take the time and look up yourself, right? According to the scholar Samuel Noah Kramer, towards the end of the middle millennium BC, kings of Uruk may take the role of Dumez as part of a sacred marriage ceremony. This ritual this lasted for one night, right? And on the 10th day of Akitu, right? The Sumerian New Year festival, which was celebrated annually at the spring equinox. As part of the ritual, it was thought that the king would engage in ritual sex intercourse with the high priest of Enan, who took on the role of the goddess. In the late 20th century, the historicity of the sacred marriage ritual was treated by scholars as more or less an established fact, right? As a established fact, but in recent years, largely due to the writings of Pedro, I don't know his name, so I'm not gonna put myself through it. Some scholars have rejected the notion of an actual sex ritual, right? Instead, seeing sacred marriage as a symbolic rather than physical union. So basically, these are the rituals that are taking place, and we still practice to the day. Consummation of marriage is, through sex. Like, if you can say your vows, but if you don't have sex with the person, you're not really married, right? So, mythology, right? Let me hold on. All right, hold on. Let me make sure that I'm presenting all of this. Right? Marriage to Enan. Right? So this is an original Sumerian tablet to the courtship of Enan and Dumuzid. Right? Take myself away again. So you can see the tablet. You can easily go look this stuff up and, observe for yourself. Right? The poem Enan prefers the farmer, right? You can go right here and look that this poem up. began with a rather playful conversation between Inan and her brother Utu, who incriminately reveals to her that it is time for her to be married. Damuzid comes to court her along with a farmer named Inkadu. At first, Edan prefers the farmer, but Utu and Dumuzid gradually persuade her that Dumuzid is the better choice for a husband, arguing that for every gift the farmer can give you, the shepherd can give her something better. In the end, Enan marries Damuzid. The shepherd and the farmer reconcile their differences, offering each other gifts. Samuel A. Noah Kramer compares the myth of the biblical story of Cain and Abel because both accounts center around a farmer and a shepherd competing for divine favor. In both stories, the deity in question ultimately chooses the shepherd, right? So then if we go by this and and if you go into my story of which one is this and my fault. Is it the Druze? Nah. Um the religion, the devil's religion, right? Inside there, we deal with Neymar, Lilith, and all of this. You will see how that story coincides with this version as well. A vast number of exotic love poems celebrating the consummation of Enan and Damuzid have survived. Two exceptions excerpts from the representative example are translated below, right? So hold on, let me take myself away again, right? As you can see, this is, one of the images that they provide, right? So erotic Tarovacote Karakata, right? Volta plaque dating to the Old Babylonian period, 1830 BC to 1531. Representation of this type were once interpreted as evidence for a sacred marriage ritual in which the king would take the role of Damuzid and engage in sexual intercourse with the priestess of Enan. This interpretation is now generally seen as a misinterpretation of Sumerian literary texts. This is the stuff that Dr. Malachi York was using, to mate with his fellow brothers, wives. Right, so I'm not gonna do the translation from the Sumerian text, but you can also click over here and on that and see it for yourself, right? But English translation by Samuel Noah Kramer and Diane Wolfstein, right? My Vola the horn, the boat of heaven, is full of eagerness like the young moon. My untilled land lies fallow. For as for me, Enan, who will plow my vulva? Who will plow my high fields? Who will plow my wet ground? As for me, the young woman, who will plow my vulva, who will station the ox there? Who will plow my vulva? Right? Um, it says, make your milk sweet and thick, my bridegroom, the shepherd. I will drink your fresh milk. Wild bull Damuzid, make your milk sweet and thick. I will drink your fresh milk. Let the milk of the goat flow of the sheepfold. Fill my whole churn with honey cheese. Lord Damuzid, I will drink your fresh milk. Right? All right, so we got the death narrative. Ancient Sumerian cylinder seals. Impressions showing Dahmuzid being tortured in the underworld by the Gala demons. All right, take myself away so you can see that. All right, okay. Okay, so it goes towards the end of the epic poem. Enan descends from into the underworld. Once again, like I said, you can you know, read this, look this up, read it, and you can see the whole story in completion, right? That Moses' wife, Enan, escaped from the underworld, but is pursued by a horde of Gala demons who insist that someone else must take her place in the underworld. They first come across Enan's Sukal Ninshubu, whatever, right, and attempts to take her. But Enan stops them, insisted that she is her loyal servant and that she had rightfully mourned for her while she was in the underworld. Their next they next come upon Shara, Enan's beautician, who is still in mourning. The demons attempt to take him, but Enan insists that they may not because he had also mourned for her. And the third person they come across is Lula, who is also in mourning. The demons try to take him, but Enan keeps them once again, stops them once again. Finally, they come across Damuzid, who is lavishly clothed and resting. Wait, let me see. Clothed and resting beneath a tree or sitting on Enan's throne, entertained by slave girls. Enan, displeased, decrees that the demon shall take him, using language which echoes the speech of Erkigal gave while condemning her. The demon then drags Damuzid down to the underworld, right? Because she was condemned herself to the underworld. Her sister is actually the queen of the underworld, right? The Sumerian poem, The Dream of Dumuzid, remember his sister, right, is an interpreter of dreams. Begins with Damuzid telling his sister about the frightening dream he had experienced. Then the Gala demons arrive to drag him down into the underworld as Enan replaced Dalmuzid flees and hides. Right, as Enan's replacement, Dalmuzi flees and hides. The Gala demons brutally torture his sister in an attempt to force her to tell them where Dalmuzid is hiding. His sister, however, refuses to tell them where her brother has gone. The Gala go to Dalmuzid's unnamed friend who betrays Dalmuzid, telling the Gala exactly where Dalmuzid is hiding. The Gala captured Dalmuzid, but Utu, the god of the sun, who was also Enan's brother, rescues Damuzid by transforming him into a gazelle. Eventually, the Gala recaptures Damuzid and drags him down into the underworld. Right? So when terracotta plaque, right, dating to the Rite period, 2000 into 1600 BC, showing a dead god, probably Tammuz, resting in his coffin, right? So you know that gods can die, right? Usually meaning that these were kings, and these stories are associated with them in their time period, meaning that, like, say if they map in the sun or they map in the seasons, this was done in this king's period, right? Most of the time, meaning an advancement. So, if you read, the Babylonian kings list, you read the Babylonian calendar, and you will start to see, associations of these things, right? In the Sumerian poem, The Return of Tammuz, which begins where the dream of Tammuz ends, right? His sister lamentates continually for days and nights over Tammuz's death, joined by Enan, who has apparently experienced a change of heart, and Sertu, Tammuz's mother. The three goddesses mourn continually until a fly reveals to Enan the location of her husband. Right now, think about the if you know the story of Hiram Abiff and how he was killed and buried under this, I forgot like how you pronounce the tree. This is all gonna be familiar with that story, right? Right, husband. Together Enan and his sister go to the place where the fly has told them they will find Tammuz. And of course, if you know about death, flies and stuff like that usually is the like a good sign to know about death besides the smell. They find him there, and Enan decrees that from that point onward, Tammuz will spend half the year with her and with her sister Escargo, right, in the underworld. She's, the queen of the underworld, and the other half of the year in heaven with her, while his sister takes his place in the underworld, right? Other versions. Other texts describe different and contradictory accounts of Tammuz's death, right? The text of the poem Enan and Bailulu, right? You can once again, go, look up this and read it yourself. Discovered by Nupur is badly mutilated, and scholars have interpreted it in a number of different ways. In the beginning of the poem, the beginning of the poem is mostly destroyed, but seems to be a laminate. The intelligible parts of the poem describe Enan pining after her husband Damuzid, who is in the steep watching his flock. Jesus again, right? Enan sets out to find him. After this, a large portion of the text is missing. When the story resumes, Enan is being told that Damuzid has been murdered. Enan discovers that the old bandit woman Belulu and her son Gyrigur, right, are the murderers. Right, and remember when two things. Think about Osiris when he got killed, and think about Hiram Abiff again when he got killed. She travels along the road to Edenel in Edenelila, right? I'm gonna just say Eden, right? And stops at an inn where she finds the two murderers. Enan stands on top of a stool and transforms Balulu into a water skin for men that men carry in the desert, forcing her to pour the funerary libations for Damuzid. Damuzid and his sister beings began with demons encourage Enan to conquer the underworld. Instead, she hands Damuzid over to them, they put Damuzid feet, hands, neck in the stocks and torture him using hot pokers. They strip him naked, do evil to him, and cover his face with his own garments. Right? Think about that. Finally, Damuzid prays to Utu for help. Utu transforms Damuzid into a creature that is part eagle and part snake, allowing him to escape back to his sister. In the next text, known as the most bitter cry, Damuzid is chased by the seven evil deputies of the nether world, right? And as he is running, he falls into a river near an apple tree on the other bank. He is dragged into the underworld where everything is simultaneously exists and does not exist, perhaps indicating that they exist in an unsustainable or immortal form, right? So remember, if like I said, if you know the story of Isis, and um Horus and my fault, I be so many different names. And Osiris, Isis, and Horus, you'll get this same story. Also, the story of Baal, however you say it. Academia, cylinders, seals, impression from Gersu, 2340 BC to 2150 BC, showing a mythological scene. The figures in the center appear to be God, perhaps Gilgamesh, who is bending the trunk of a tree into a curve as he chops it down. Underneath the tree, a god ascending from the underworld, possibly Damuzid, hands a mace-like object to a goddess, possibly Inan or one of Damuzid's female relatives. Right? A collection of laminations for Damuzid entitled In the Desert by the Early Grass describes Damu, right? I'm thinking of, the gangs, Bloods, Crips, right? Think about that too. When we have this conversation, remember I told you the gang affiliation and all of that as well. Right? Damu, the dead anointed one, being dragged down into the underworld by demons who blindfolded him, tie him up, and forbid him from sleeping. Damu's mother tries to follow him into the underworld, but Damu is now a dismembered spirit flying in the wind and the lightning and tornadoes. So you see, at this, even like here, think about, for us to be like, July, August, September, hurricane season and stuff like that, right? underworld, where we at? Lightning and tornadoes. Damu's mother is also unable to eat the food or drink the water in the underworld because it is bad. Damu travels along the road of the underworld and encounters various spirits. He meets the ghost of a small child who tells him that it is lost. The ghost is a singer. Neymar agrees to accompany the child. Damu asks the spirit to send a message to his mother, but they cannot because they are dead, and the living cannot hear the dead's voice. Damu, however, manages to tell his mother to dig up his blood and chop it into pieces. Think about the story of Osiris. Damu's mother gave the congealed blood to Damu's sister, right? This is another sister, Amashama, right? Who is a leech, right? So I told you these stories, these people reflect things inside their culture and their society in order to make it stick inside the people, right? This is like your Hollywood, all of that put in one. Your Bible, all of that put in one. Mixes the congealed blood into a brew of beer, which Damu must drink in order to be restored to life. Damu, however, realizes that he is dead and declares that he is not in the grass which shall grow in for his mother again. Right, so now we understand of this cycle of the seasons and stuff like that, right? For his mother again, nor in the water which will rise. Damu's mother blesses him, and his sister dies to join him in the underworld. She tells him that the day that the dawns of for you will also dawn for me. The day you see, I shall also see, referring to the fact that the day in the world above is night in the underworld. If you in one side of the globe, it is daytime, while on the other side of the globe, it is night, right? The seasons and everything's be off, right? Academian, right? In Akkadian epic of Gilgamesh, Tammuz is described as a colorful alulu bird, possibly a European roller, right? In the myth of Adapa, Tammuz and Ningazinda, right, are the two doorkeepers of Anu, the god of the heavens, who speaks out in heaven for Adapa, the priest of air. Now, Ea, right? Now, remember, these names. I'm gonna put up another video right here, the Job video once again, because this is where it breaks down, the sky. So this right here is also in reference to that situation, right? Priest of Appa. He had, as he stands trial before Anu, a tablet in tablet 6 of the standard Academian epic of Gilgamesh, Ishtar Enan attempts to seduce the hero Gilgamesh, but he rebuffs her, reminding her that she had struck Dammuz, the lover of her youth, decreeing that he should keep weeping year after year. He like, nah, man. do you died, he moves on, and you damn him just for not crying year after year. Gilgamesh describes Tammuz as a colorful alulu bird, possibly a European or Indian ruler, right? Whose wing had been broken and now spends all his time in the woods crying, my wing, you know, like your other half. My other half, right? Tablet 6, Section 2, line 11, 15. Gilgamesh may be referring to an alternative account of Tammuz's death, different from the one recorded in extant Texas, right? As you know, this is on this one, we're talking about, the academian, epic of Gilgamesh. That's how you know that this system was passed along and, developed. And this is why I tell people that, the Egyptian Empire was an invasion of Africa, right? Pardon me, let me um also got some juice over here. Let me drink some of this. Pardon me real quick. This is a lot of reading. Uh, okay. All right. Where we at here? Extent recorded right text. Aton Morgat has interpreted Damuzid as an antithesis of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh refuses Ishtar's demand for him to become her lover, seeks immortality, and fails to find it. Damuzid, by contrast, accepts Ishtar's offer and, as a result of her love, is able to spend half the year in heaven, even though he is condemned to the underworld for the other half. Right? Mehmet Ali Atak further argues that the Tammuz model of immortality was far more prevalent in the ancient Near East than the Gilgamesh model. In a chart of Adiv, right? I'll let you, you make it out yourself. Antediluvian, right? Generation in Babylon, a biblical tradition. William Wolfgang Hallow associates Tammuz with the composite half man, half fish counselor or culture hero Ap Kupula and do I can't get it right, and suggests the equivalence between Damuzid and Enoch in the Sethite genealogy given in Genesis chapter 5. So again, they're saying that these stories can be, you know, at least appear to be traced to, some biblical form that we deal with today, right? And I'm agreeing with them, not on everything, but on a lot of it. In the Bible, right? In Ezekiel 8:14, the prophet Ezekiel shown here in this illustration from 1866 by Gustave Doré, witnessed women mourning the death of Tammuz outside the temple. All right, so you see it right there, right? All right, so let's come. All right. The cult of Ishtar and Tammuz may have been introduced in the kingdom of Judah, during the reign of Manish, and the Old Testament contains numerous allusions to them. right? Ezekiel 8:14 mentions Tammuz by name. Then he brought me to the door of the gates in the city house, which was towards the north. And behold, let me take this away, right? And behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than this. Right? See that right there. Right? So Ezekiel testimony is the only direct mention of Tammuz in the Hebrew Bible. But again, it's there when we're acknowledging this, right? But the cult of Tammuz may also be alluded to in Isaiah 17:10-11. Because thou hast forgotten the God of thy salvation, and has not been mindful of the rock of thy strength. Therefore shalt thou plant pleasant plants, and shall set it with strange slips. In the day shalt thou make thy plant to grow, and in the morning shalt thou make thy seeds to flourish, right? And the harvest shall be a heap in the day of grief and of desperate sorrow. You tell me. We know how, they play. So they'll give you the information in order for you to like, people like myself, not me, because I'm just somebody who studied, but for them, in order to move the people, they'll use these references, right? This passage may be describing the miniature garden that women would plant in honor of Tammuz during his festival. Ishtar 1:29-30, Ishtar 65, verse 3, and Ishtar 66:17. All denounce the sacrifice made in the garden, which may also be connected to the cult of Tammuz. Another possible allusion to Tammuz occurs in Daniel's 11:37. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard God, for he shall magnify himself above all, right? Nor the desire of women, right? Um, The subject of this passage is anti-acoustic virgin for emphasis, right? Forgive me, right? And also scholars have interpreted in reference to the one desire of women, right? In this passage as it indicates as an indication that Antiochus may have persecuted the cult of Tammuz. There is no external evidence to support this reading, however, and it is much more possible that this impetus is merely a jib at, Antiochus' notorious cruelty towards all the women who fell in love with him. So it's, could go both ways, right? The Hebrew Bible also contains reference to Tammuz consort Enan Ishtar. Jeremiah 7:18 and Jeremiah 44:15-19 mention the Queen of Heaven, who was probably a syncretion of Enan, Ishtar, and the West Semitic god Astarte, right? The Song of Song bears strong similarities to the Sumerian love poem involving Enan and Damuzid, particularly in the usage of natural symbolism to represent the lover's physicalities, right? Song of Songs 6:10. Who is she that looks forth as the morning, fair as the moon, clear as the sun, and terrible as an army with banners? Is almost certainly a reference to Inan and slash Istar, right? Classic antiquity, right? Fragments of an attic red figure wedding vase. This is in 430 to 420 BC, showing a woman climbing ladders up to the roof of their house carrying gardens of Adonis. Right? If you let me see if you could probably see it there. Right? Um right here in the hands, right there in the hands. If you can see my mouse, right? See right there and down here, right? All right, right. The myth of Enan and Tammuz later becomes the basis of the Greek myth Aphrodite and Adonis. The Greek name, right? Adonis, Greek, is derived from the Canaanites word Adon, meaning Lord. The earliest known Greek reference of Adonis comes from a fragment of a poem by the lesbian poetess Sappho, right, dating to the 7th century BC. Now, oh, pardon me here. Let me bring myself back, right? I just showed you that, right? Hold on a minute. Let me pour myself some more water, Give me a second, people. Right? All right. All right. If you notice again, right? Lesbian, right? So we know this system, has these um undertones, should I say, right? Okay, so dating to the 17th century BC, in which a chorus of young girls asked Aphrodite that bring this up for y'all. Um, Aphrodite, where we at? Aphrodite, what they can do to mourn Adonis' death. Aphrodite replies that they must beat their breasts and tear their tunics. Later, reconstruction of Adonis' legend reveals that he was believed to have been slain by a wild bull. Fucking bug. Hunting where we at, slain by a wild boar during a hunting trip. Think about um King James' mother, right? And how her husband, got killed on a hunting trip. So pay attention to these stories and these tactics, right? Because these are also tactics. I tell people the Bible is based on like three different things, right? Tactics, the king and its servant. So it's designed for those three things. According to Lucian de Syria, each year during the festival of Adonis, the Adonis River in Lebanon, now known as Abraham River, ran red with blood. Right? The Greeks In Greece, the myth of Adonis was associated with the festival of Adona, which was celebrated by Greek women every year in midsummer. The festival, which was evidently already celebrated in Lesbos by Sappho, time seems to have first became popular in Athens in the late mid 5th century BC. Excuse me. Right. At the time, at the start of the festival, a woman would plant a garden of Adonis, a small garden planted inside a small basket or a shallow piece of broken pottery containing a variety of quick growing plants such as lettuce and fennel, or even quick sprouting grains such as wheat and barley. The women would then climb ladders to the roof of their houses, which they would place the gardens out under the heat of the summer sun. The plant would sprout in the sunlight but wither quickly in the heat. When the women would mourn the lament loudly over the death of Adonis, tearing their clothes and beating their breasts in the public display of grief. The 3rd century BC poet Euripides of Charles Chalcic, right, remarks of the Haitian, I can't get all of this shit. I don't be knowing all of these fucking people names, right? That only um Cactus washed the wounds of Adonis. Survival to the Christian era, right? Survival into the Christian era. Okay, let me take myself away. The Church of Nativity in Bethlehem, according to Jerome, the site had temporarily been overshadowed by a grove of Tammuz. All right, so traditional Mesopotamian religions began to gradually decline between the 3rd and 5th century AD as ethnic Assyrians converted to Christianity, right? Nonetheless, the cult of Ishtar and Tammuz managed to survive in part of Upper Mesopotamia. The church father Jerome the church father Jerome recorded in later dates in the year 395 AD, Bethlehem belonged now to us, was overshadowed by the grove of Tammuz. This that is to say, Adonis in the caves where once an infant Christian cried, right? The love of Venus was laminated. This same cave later became the site of the Church of Nativity. The church historian Eusebius, right? You see it right here by my head, right above my head, right there, right? However, does not mention pagans having ever worshipped in the cave, nor do any other early Christian writings. Of course they wouldn't. They cover in their tracks. These are cults. The same things you see with the Enochs and David and all of these cults and Freemasonry, right? However, Solomon and all of that. However, does not mention the cave dedicated Jerome Christian however, does not mention the pagans having ever worshipped in the cave, nor do any other early Christian writings. Peter Wilton has agreed that the cave was never dedicated to Tammuz and that Jerome's misinterpreted Christian mourning over the massacre of the innocents as a pagan ritual over Tammuz's death. All right, that's what you can tell me. That's what I'm. When I say this right here, for me, I think about George Floyd, right? And we're in this plague and pandemic, and they will use that to transform, George Washington. Just my words, right? Somebody in the future would know. You won't know. You know what I'm saying? But somebody in the future will understand what I'm saying. As a pagan ritual over Tammuz's death, Joan E. Taylor has countered discontent by arguing that Jerome, as an educated man, could not have been so naive as to mistake Christian mourning over the massacre of an innocent as a pagan ritual for Tammuz. So basically, they're saying, nah, he got it right. Right? During the 6th century AD, some early Christians in the Middle East borrowed elements from poems of Ishtar mourning over the death of Tammuz, who did into their own retelling of the Virgin Mary. Right, during the 6th century AD, some early Christians in the Middle East borrowed elements from the poems of Ishtar mourning over the death of Tammuz into their own retelling of the Virgin Mary, mourning over the death of her son Jesus. Right, the Syrian writer Jacob of Serug, right, and Romanos the Methodist, Melodost, right? Both wrote laments in which the Virgin Mary described her compassion for her son at the foot of the cross in deeply personal terms, closely resembling Ishtar laments over the death of Tammuz. Right? Let's see this picture for you. The Kodo Tammuz was still thriving in the city of Haran in the 10th and 11th century AD. All right, so you got that. Tammuz is the month of July in Iraqi Arabic and Levantan Arabic. See Arabic names of calendar months. All you gotta do is, click on that right there, and you can see the calendar, as well as the Assyrian calendar and Jewish calendar. In reference to Tammuz appears in Arabic literature from the 9th and 11th century AD, and what purports to be a translation of ancient Nabatean, right? Here, Arabic, Nabatean writing, and Aramic, right? And that's that right there, right? Next, where we at? Reference, what translate to, text by Kutima, right? I can't get that name. The Babylonian Ibn Washuian, right, 19th and 10th century AD, adds information on his own efforts to ascertain the identity of Tammuz. In his discovery of the full details of the legend of Tammuz and another Napatanian book, how he summoned the king to worship the 7 planets and the 12 signs, and how the king put him to death several times in a cruel manner, Tammuz coming to life again, crew banner Tammuz, coming to life again after each time, until at last he dies. And behold, it was identical to the legend of Saint George. Ibn Wa'il also adds that Tammuz lived in Babylon before the coming of the Chaldeans, right? And belonged to an ancient Mesopotamian tribe called Gabin. On rituals later related to Tammuz in his time, he added that the Sabians and Haran, I read this before, and Babylonians still laminated the loss of Tammuz every July, right? But that the origin of the worship had been lost, right? In the 10th century AD, the Arab traveler Al Nadim wrote in his Kitab al Faras that all the Sabians of our time, those in Babylonia, as well as those in Haran, lament and weep to his day over Tammuz at a festival which more particularly the women hold in the month of the same name. Drawing some works of Syriac calendars, feast days. Al Nadim described a Tammuz festival that took place in the middle of the month of Tammuz. Women bewailed the death of Tammuz at the hand of his master, who was said to have grounded his bones, right, and scattered them in the wind. Consequently, women would forego the eating of ground food during the festival time. The same festival is mentioned in the 11th century by Ibn Athir, who recounts that it still took place every year at the appointed time along the banks of the Tigris River. The cult of Ishtar and Tammuz still existed in Madrid, right, Mardin, as late as the 18th century. Tammuz is still the name for the month of July in Iraqi Arabic, right? So, right, you can see this is on the side right here, right? This right here is how much more, we gotta keep going, right? Okay. It's not that much. Right here should be, close to the end, right? Let me take me away again. Photography of Sir James George Fraser, an anthropologist who is most directly responsible for promoting the concept of the dying and rising God archetype, right? Main article: dying and rising deity, right? In the late 19th century, what we say here, right? Scottish, let me bold you out there too, all right? Scottish anthropologist St. James George Fraser, right, wrote extensively about Tammuz in his monumental study of comparative religion, The Golden Brawl, the first edition of which was published in 1890, as well as the late as well as later works. Fraser claimed that Tammuz was just one example of the archetype of a dying and rising god found throughout all cultures. Fraser and others also saw Tammuz Greek equivalent Adonis as the dying and rising god. Origene discusses Adonis, whom he associates with Tammuz, in his selective and comments on Ezekiel, noting that they say that for a long time certain rites and of initiations are conducted. First, that they weep for him since he has died. Second, that they rejoice for him because he has risen from the dead. Apple, right? Tammuz um, categorization as a dying and rising god has was based on the abbreviated academian redaction of Ananus descent into the underworld, right? Which was missing the ending. Since numerous lamentations over the death of Tammuz has already been translated, scholars filled in the missing ending and assume that the reason for Ishtar's descent was because she was going to resurrect Tammuz, and that the text could therefore be assumed to the end with Tammuz's resurrection. Then, in the middle of the 20th century, a complete, unabridged original Sumerian text of Hunan's descent was finally translated, revealing that instead of ending Tammuz's resurrection, as had long been assumed, the text actually ended with Dammuzid death. The rescue of Dammuzid from the underworld was later found in the text Return of Tammuz, translated in 1963. Biblical scholar Paul Eddy and Greg Boyd argued in 2007 that this text does not describe a triumph over death because Dammuzid must be replaced in the underworld by his sister, thus reinforcing that in inaternable power of the realm of the dead. However, other scholars have cited that as an example of a god who was previously dead and risen again. It sticks with the rising theory, right? So then we go literature references, right? Take myself away so you can see this picture, right? So you see, the demons in hell, right? This is all where, put up here, King James, and the Scottish Rite. So this all right here will be connected with that again, right? Tammuz appears as one of Satan's demons in Book 1, John Milton, Paradise Lost, shown here in this engraving from 1866 by Gustave right, Dura, in reference to the cult of Tammuz preserved in the Bible and Greco-Roman literature, brought the story to the attention of Western European writers. The story was popular in early modern England and appeared in a variety of works, including Sir Walter Raleigh's History of the World, right? And he's connected to King James and all of them too, right? George Sandius Dictionarium Relation, well, actually more to um well, I think it was Frank Mesmer, right? Something like that. One of the two. Where we at here? Dictorium Relation of a Journey, 1615, and Charles Stephanus Dictorium Historium, right, Historicium, right, 1553. They have also been suggested as sources of Tammuz, most famous appearance in England literature as a demon in book one of John Milton's Paradise Lost, lines 446 through 457, right? Tammuz came next behind, whose annual wound of Lebanon allured, right, the Syrian damsel to laminate his faith in, I'm not gonna, there go right there, okay? There go right there. The faith of an amorous deities all the summer's day, while smooth Adonis from his native rock ran purple in the sea. Right? Um, where we at? See, suppose with blood of tamarisk yearly wounded. The love tale infects Sion's daughter that likes heat, whose wanton passion in the sacred porch Ezekiel saw when by the vision led his eyes surveyed the dark ideologies of alienated Judah, right? Oscar Wilde, right? And then each pigeon spread with milky vein and broad car soared into the drawing sky, and like a cloud the aerial caravan passed over the silently till the faint air was troubled with the song from the wan mouth that calls of bleeding Tammuz all night long. All right, so then we have, the family tree. All right, let me bring this down for you a bit. Right, so we have the family tree. You can, go on all of these. These are goddesses and gods, right? And this is the main, the head god. And then, so these are his, the offspring that came from him, right? And, you know, we just end this here. This is the last part of it. So I just wanted y'all to see that. And hope you enjoyed this. I hope this brought you some information, and peace until the next time.